Welcome to another edition of Monday Night Muscle. I'm your host, Sean Ray, joined by the voice of professional bodybuilding, Bob CICHERILLO from New Jersey. Are you from Jersey?
Close enough.
Rochester.
Yeah, New York.
Rochester, California, Florida, Georgia. You've been getting around.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
Well, when you get around like that, Bob, you've had to notice over your short, brief 50-plus years on the planet Earth that when you first fell in love with the sport of bodybuilding, and you open up that magazine and you thumb through the pages over and over and over, and you just kind of go into this dream world of how you got sucked into that, and then ultimately you wind up in those pages of the magazines, how that made you feel, then to transition out of competition and one day wake up and the magazines just aren't there anymore. We were talking about video killing the radio star. The magazines aren't what they once used to be because we have cell phones, iPads, YouTube, and all these other things. Did we lose something there?
Well, from video killing the radio star till social media killing the TV star. We'll get into that in just a few moments, Sean. But the good news is that you and I have been around long enough that we remember those magazine days.
Yes.
Going to the newsstand, there was 15 different kinds of bodybuilding magazines.
The anticipation.
Oh, and all the anticipation because there was no internet. So the only way to get the newest information and, to contact the stars, you can get their courses out there. You know, the arms and shoulders above the rest from Rick Wayne and all those old ads.
Training programs.
Arnold, and everybody had an ad out there. And of course, your latest contest news was all in the magazines.
Right.
The bad news is that you and I have been around long enough to see the demise of magazines, and obviously they've taken a back seat now to digital.
Yeah.
Now, that's good and that's bad. We grew up in a certain era. That's what we remember. We're old school.
And there's patience in the old school. People had to wait, and you had to learn to wait for what was to come.
Well, consider this, right? Like we're talking about, the transition over the years, right? Movies, back when they used to come out, way back in the 50s and stuff.
I wasn't around then, Bob, but go ahead.
Neither was I. But epics.
Okay.
4 hours long. Some of them had intermissions, actually.
Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind. Ten Commandments, right? Ben-Hur.
And we watched the whole thing.
Well,
right?
And like I say, they were so long that you had an intermission that people would actually get up and go stretch out. The interlude, right? Now, but I use it as an example. Movies went from being, 4-hour epics to, getting cut down over the years. Now they're under 2 hours a lot.
Hour and a half is good.
But you'll notice society as a whole has gotten shorter. The attention span. You can't put out a big, long piece anymore without people growing disinterested.
Yeah.
Or it's not fast enough for them. They want 1 minute, 2 minute pieces. The attention span has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to bodybuilding, it's not a good thing because there's stories, there's backgrounds, there's interest there. We've often talked about the interest in bodybuilding and the entertainment factor, where if people don't know the background of the athletes, they don't really have a real big care if anybody wins or not.
Well, I think that's what magazines were designed to do, was to develop the storylines that you're talking about. I mean, these guys didn't just wind up on the cover of the magazine and they become overnight sensations. You opened up and then you got to read their biography, their story, and you got sucked into following these athletes because there was a human interest story. You wanted to know what magazine they would be appearing in next, who was going to be on the next cover, what training cycles are going to be in there, what contest reports were going to be in there, and not to mention they were up there with some very good companies. So you had like Iron Man magazine, Muscle and Fitness, and Flex, and Muscle Mag International, Muscle Training Illustrated,
Muscle Mag International, Muscle Digest.
Yeah, you knew there was a competition.
Yeah,
and they stood right next to each other. And as they became even more and more popular, some of them wound up being shrink wrapped.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go to the newsstand and stand there for hours.
Yeah, well, we would
read the whole thing and then stick it back on the rack.
Real quick, to start flipping through it. But one of the things that came out of that era, though, Sean, was some of the best writers in the industry.
Yes.
Of course, we can't talk about writers without Peter McGough. Rest in peace, Peter. We recently lost him. Greatest writer ever. I started out when I first read the magazines, Rick Wayne.
Yeah, Rick Wayne was my former editor of Flex magazine.
What a great writer.
Right.
But these guys they had to tell a story because, again, there was no video, there was no... unless you happened to go get a video, which would have been months and months later.
Well, and every one of those writers was attached to the sport in a very different, unique way. I mean, Ricky Wayne was there. He was on that stage doing the business. Of course, Bill Reynolds from Flex magazine was not. He was not a bodybuilder. He looked like a power lifter, did some strongman stuff. But the majority of his career when I was there, he looked like nothing like an athlete. Peter McGough, not an athlete as well in the former years, but they were storytellers and they can capture these interviews. John Little, remember John Little used to call me at home.
Bob Kennedy, Dan Lurie, Gordon Wong. I mean,
Jeff Everson even.
Jeff Everson, was a big writer. But those writers had a certain way to kind of frame it.
Julian Schmidt. I don't want to leave him out.
Listen, Julian was, now for those who don't know Julian was a walking thesaurus.
Yes, he was. And the words.
His articles, you can always tell a Julian article because there was words in there you had to go look up. Yeah. But that was just the art of Julian. He had the big 10-gallon cowboy hat. And the jeans and the boots and all that kind of stuff.
We missed that guy.
But those guys had to put you in the seat.
Yeah.
And that was the ability like Peter McGough had.
Suck you right in.
You were literally sucked in. You're reading and you're there. You're at the Beacon Theater.
But then those authors, those journalists, would take you through the navigation of those photographers. Now, some of those photographers were phenomenal. One of the best I ever worked with, Chris Lund.
Yeah.
Mr. Magic, he was the one that was taking the pictures of the real training. He didn't do staged photography.
No.
He caught you in the midst of your actual workout and would encourage you to lift heavy, lift hard. Ignore him. He wanted to be that fly on the wall, while the other artistic photographers like Brian Moss, shooting notorious black and white photos, he was very good at that. Mike Nevue was a studio photographer. Set you up in the studio, get you the nice backdrop.
Yep.
Very artsy with that. Some other photographers in there that we worked with, Paula Crane, Irv Gelb. They're out there. You probably didn't work with as many as I did.
Jimmy Metler, Robert Reif.
Jim Metler, Robert Reif.
These guys were huge in the industry.
And John Balick as well.
John Balick was one of the early ones. And Artie Zeller, that's right. But while we're going down memory lane, what strikes me the most, Sean, is we get to now create that with our mouths.
Yeah.
So we don't, we both write and we've always written our own stuff. But obviously it becomes less in demand as you've got video now. So we're able to get on Monday Night Muscle here and have a discussion and talk about it and put your emotions into it and, and put your feelings out on it. So it's nice that we get to kind of enjoy that, without actually just sitting down there and, in the old days on the typewriter or on the computer.
I think our point of reference, though, is the magazine. So while we're able to articulate it on video, when I think of where I'm coming from, I think of Bill Dobbins, who was great with the camera and with the pen. Capture the certain photography that you want to capture, and then you have to write the stories around that. So pretty much everything I kind of talk about is coming from the education that we got in the magazines and the bodybuilding books. There were actually books back in the day that were written on bodybuilding that today's bodybuilders don't even pick up. They don't even reference them in terms of what they have to do, because they go to Google or they go to ask a coach rather than learn it, read it, study it, and then go and apply it.
Well, here's what I'm seeing. Despite the Buggles' one hit in their life, Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yes.
But you didn't know that one.
Who was it?
The Buggles.
The Bengals.
Buggles, not the Bengals.
Bungles.
The Buggles. B-U-G-G.
Oh, you're way older than me.
L-E-S.
Who the hell are
the Buggles who put out Video Killed the Radio Star.
Send me that video. I want to see it.
But as we look back on it now, video did not kill the radio star. The radio star is still around.
Yes.
Now, it's been reinvented
I don't know
a little
who they
bit,
are.
But we're going to get into why that applies to bodybuilding and the magazines. We're going to get into that, Sean, in just a moment after this commercial break.
People always ask how I got here. I was willing to work just a little harder than everyone else. Every damn day. If I can have hundreds of hours back, I'm gonna grab them. Spending hours prepping chicken, rice, and vegetables, F that. I rely on perfect nutrition. I rely on trifecta.
All right, we're back with the Buggles. How about that, Sean?
Okay.
You will never forget that anymore. If it comes up for $1 million, Sean Ray, what is the name of the group?
It'd be like you asked me to spell the word Wednesday. I would choke under pressure. Can't do it. I can never get that one.
So, video did not kill the radio star.
Okay.
Did video kill the magazine, as it would be? And the answer to me is no, and I'll tell you why. For anybody that saw the pictures that were put on the Olympia LLC Instagram site after this past Olympia, you saw some outstanding photos of behind the scenes action. Now, you can't capture that in a video. Video's moving, it's moving parts and all that, which is great. But there's something about a still photo that just captures a moment. And some of these guys were very creative this year. Where they were behind like the curtain, and they were catching the guy, like where you can see the audience and the guy in front of them, or the girl, as it would be, different angles, that type of thing, shadowing.
They tell a story.
It tells a story, but you can't duplicate that on a video. That has to exist on a photo.
On print, and that's one of the reasons why I invited Reg Bradford, remember Reg Bradford?
Yeah, sure do. Yeah.
He came and he got some really good shots of the female bodybuilders that he actually made available to me that I kind of put out there on the line. I knew that his pictures would resonate with a lot of those female bodybuilders because a lot of athletes, they have to be shot a certain way, and Reg Bradford can catch those kind of images.
Reg actually gave me my second cover photo of all time. Yeah,
he's been around.
Believe it or not. Yeah, it was on Muscular Development, the old one. Back in the day. The first one, of course, being the NPC News, which we've both been on covers. So,
well, we can't talk about photography without talking about the NPC News because our good friend Jay Mannion is the guy that's behind the lens. These guys have kind of like told the story as well. I mean, we lived it. Now we're here verbalizing it, and you're watching it on TV. You're not picking up the magazines, but there was always something about jumping from one magazine. It's kind of like sitting at home, changing the channels, getting your news sources or your best, Saturday night or Friday night movies. The magazines had different writers, different photographers for different storylines, and you had to pick up one specific magazine that dove deeper into it, like women's physique.
Women's physique.
Steve Winterstrom, photographer and a writer. If you really wanted to dive into the women's world, the women's physique was where you needed to go. Flex magazine had a little bit of female stuff in it, but it was predominantly male-oriented, and it was geared towards the bodybuilders, just like Iron Man with Perry Rader back in the day.
Perry Rader, wow. The Magic Circle.
Yeah, and so you can't go out and just grab a magazine anymore. I mean, they're not in existence, some of them.
Well, the cool thing is you're going to see a resurgence of some of these magazines.
I know that Iron Man magazine is back as Iron Man Naturally. So they're covering the natural bodybuilding.
And that's cool. They got their niche, and that's fine for people who enjoy that. But I can see a resurgence to some degree, not to what it was in the old days. Like some things you're just going to bite it, like Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
There is no real good reason. And they were the first ones to start kind of paring it down. Then all of a sudden it was kind of half of what it was.
No, it's like 30 pages.
Well, but
it's still the same price.
Well, there's 10 ESPNs you can go on at any time during the day and get all your sport, and that's sports oriented. So you want to see video and stuff.
Sure.
Bodybuilding is not a sport in that sense. And that's a whole other debate that we can get into some other time.
Right.
The old sport versus art. It's a little bit of everything, if you ask me.
It is.
But that is something that you can capture in photos. Listen, you can go to the bookstore now or the Publix market or whatever, and you'll see like the Time Life, like 2020 in pictures. It's like it's like an anniversary issue.
Yes, it's a collectible.
These are cool, like a collectible. Now that you could do with bodybuilding.
Sure you could.
Because let's face it, even though we're on the internet all the time doing stuff, it's not like you've got any one piece that you could kind of flip through and see images captured of the year.
Very few people print out the images they have on their phones.
Right. So I can see that being brought back in. I do think it has some purpose. So I don't think it's completely gone. Because people do, and let's face it, there was something about in the old days, Sean, grabbing the newspaper.
Yeah.
And,
Well, the problem I have with the newspapers now is that you're still paying inflated prices for less news, and you can find the same news in an instant on your iPhone. And that's where the digital world has it over the print world, because it takes time to print, develop, edit, and put together a magazine.
And that's the biggest issue.
And by then it's old news.
Well, exactly. I was just going to say the same thing. That's the biggest issue is you can't get it out quick enough.
Right.
You can't get it printed, binded, out there, sent out. It's already old.
Right.
But you can do it bi-monthly, maybe every quarter, or like you say, some sort of maybe a twice-a-year anniversary type thing. Again,
I mean, listen, let's not kid ourselves. Some magazines have survived the test of time. Maybe they've got different types of advertisers, and they have a different type of market. There's still that generation of people that do not want to stare at their iPhone all day long. Yeah. And there's something about your Sunday morning coffee with your newspaper in your hand, sitting out on your porch. I know you got your ranch out there with all your horses, and going through that type. There's a methodology about it. I always liked to run down to the newsstand and see if the magazine's there. I sometimes go down to the newsstand and my magazine's not there yet, and I'm there every day because it's a crapshoot as to when they're going to wind up on the newsstand.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
And we've both been in that position because they might tell you, they're going to consider it for a cover. You never really shot for a cover.
Yeah.
It just kind of materialized one day. So it would not be odd. I mean, there was on more than one occasion I went down there and I was looking at myself on the cover, and it's like, oh my God, it's out.
A surprise.
You talk about a surprise and exciting.
Yeah.
Now of course you're trying to show everybody that's in the immediate area that it's you on there.
Right. Hey, I think as you move up the ladder, you start to recognize who the writers are, who the photographers are, and you recognize the body of work that they have. Remember Herb Ritz. And then you have the king of the covers, Jason Ellis. I mean, he was only specializing in taking cover shots. Then you got to a point where you wanted to actually work with those photographers because of the style of photography that they do, and then you sought out the writers because of the storytelling that those writers do. And it's kind of like actors and actresses. You want to work with this director, you want to work with this producer, and the more you get into the bodybuilding industry and you're looking at the pictures, you're suddenly looking at the photographer, you're reading who the article is written by, and of course you're finding out about the athlete. Well, those days are kind of gone.
Question's going to be, Sean, to you right after the break. What is a cover shot worth to an athlete these days? Right back in a few moments. All right, and we're back with the topic at hand. Did video kill the radio star? Are magazines a thing of the past, Sean? Does a magazine cover, be it digital or paper, have value still?
I think it has some kind of value if it's credible, because any of us can make a cover. They have apps, Bob. I'm sure you've been on the cover of GQ magazine because you have the GQ app on your phone. You're on Billionaire on the cover of that, and Entrepreneur, because you have those apps on your phone.
Now we know that's a Photoshop.
But yeah, I think there's some relevance to being on a cover, whether it's a digital cover or on a physical cover, based on the credibility of the source. I mean, it's still a situation where, let's just, if we're talking about auto racing and you win the Daytona 500, you want to be on the cover of that auto racing magazine because that's the holy grail.
I think that's a great point. If hypothetically, if we had Flex magazine back, all right, either way, I don't care, paper or, it became a monthly digital, like real, it looks like a magazine cover.
Sure.
That's got credibility. Like, that had weight. Like, if you made the cover of Flex magazine back in the day, or Muscle and Fitness even more, because that's got even a broader base.
Right.
That was huge.
Well, I still think that there's room for that because we're in the digital age and anything is possible. Now, look, we may not come back with a daily newspaper type of a magazine where every day you're going to see some new written content because it takes employees, it takes management, it takes editorial, but I don't see why we couldn't get at least once a month or maybe even once a week our Flex Athlete of the Week, our Muscle and Fitness cover model of the week. That's a digital graphic that can be done. There's also a story that can be written, and those can be certainly inserted into a weekly feature or even a monthly feature because we're in that digital age and we've got to adjust with time because the athletes would then look for that. They want to see who the Flex Magazine Athlete of the Week is.
And it's coming from somebody else, Sean.
Yeah.
This is Flex Magazine.
Yes.
It's Muscle and Fitness, right?
They're identified by a credible source.
Well, the years in the biz, the Weider legacy, obviously, the ongoing, continuum from Jake Wood now, right, in the Olympia and all that stuff. Anybody can go make their own cover shots.
Sure.
And we see a lot of this. Like I say, there's apps. There's people out there who just kind of make their own covers and want to, they want to kind of peddle it out there like there's
But
something.
it's the media source.
But it's coming from them. That doesn't give you any credit. It kind of makes you look stupid.
Right.
If it's a Flex magazine cover, to me that still has prestige like that, and I think you can have prestige going forward with the athletes themselves, be it they're looking for contracts, everybody's always looking to pad their numbers, right?
Right.
Now, it's only good because everybody caught on about 3-4 years ago. Everybody was getting all these numbers. Oh, I got 4 million followers. Well, it turns out they're all bots,
right?
Bought from India, whatever, right? And all this kind of craziness. Well, it didn't take long to figure out from people that knew what they were doing that you can tell by the responses and all that stuff that you don't have 4 million. You don't even have 40,000.
Yeah, and I don't know why or how we got to that place where it's about likes and follows. I think for me, it's always been about substance and content. I mean, I want to follow someone because they're putting out the same type of energy that draws me to it. When I went to the magazine, I was buying Flex magazine, I was getting Muscle and Fitness because of what was inside, the content. It meant something, it was applicable to my life, it was driving me to want to become a better athlete. So if my source of information is coming from following someone, You can tell a lot about a person based on the type of people that they actually follow.
I can tell you how we got there. This is generation. Look at me.
Generation, look at me.
Okay, that's what they do, and unfortunately,
Is there an age group in that?
it's like the millennials for the most part, but we do see some older people who kind of follow that millennial way.
Sure.
Like I say, they'll put their own stuff out there. They'll make themselves a superstar because you have a platform to do so.
Because you're the editor and the photographer and producer.
We had no platform to do that.
Right.
If somebody else had to take an interest in you, be it Weeder or
They
whatever,
sought us out.
Yeah.
Right.
They sought you out. You got a contract. You were on the cover of their
It
magazine.
was based on the body of our work.
Listen, there was only 12 magazine covers in a year, once a month.
Right.
So if you were one of only 12,
You were
that meant
chosen.
something,
You were
right?
the chosen one.
You were chosen for that, for particular reasons that you had value and you had worth. The problem with people putting out stuff today on their own is it doesn't have any value or worth other than in their own mind and their 5,000 closest friends that look at it and tell them how great they look.
Bob, it's the stupid things you say that make light bulbs go off in my head.
There we
So I'm
go.
listening to you, but I've got a great idea.
There we go.
I think here at Monday Night Muscle, along with our producers and our CEO, Jake Wood, we should create on our show once every Monday an athlete of the week and highlight them and profile them and give them a place
Kinda like that.
where we can recognize their work and celebrate what they're doing. And that way, these athletes have something to look forward to. Who's going to be the athlete of the week on Monday Night Muscle?
I like it.
I mean, we come up with these kind of advices and we share them with our team and we turn these athletes out there into future superstars. We can do that right here at Monday Night Muscle because of our advices.
You know what? And they're always the right advices.
That's
so,
right.
You know what? Let's run it. I love it, though, Sean. Great idea. Let's spread the wealth. Let's hand it down to the next generation.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Listen, you want to be on something credible. Well, there's nothing more credible than Monday Night Muscle. We all know that. We're not talking about stupid things. You know, we're not bringing up personal stuff. You know, we talk about the business of bodybuilding, the sport of bodybuilding, where we're coming, where we came from, where we're going. All that good stuff.
I'm going to go one step further, Bob, because I'm all about generosity. You're not somebody that gives a lot, you take all the time. I'm a giver. I like to give people things.
Yeah.
So on Monday Night Muscle, I want to take it to another level. I want to create an opportunity where somebody that's tuning into our show can have an opportunity to come and be a guest on our show. Tell us their story here in person. Maybe accompany us to one of these shows, one of these Olympia qualifying shows, or maybe the Olympia itself. That's how we get our viewers, we get our athletes out there to be more involved with this show because we give back, Bob. You got to learn how to give back. These athletes out there, they want to be a part of the Olympia. They want to be a part of an Olympia qualifying experience, or maybe they want to come in here and tell their story in person. I'm all about that. So I want to give. I want to feed that going into 2021.
Tell you what I'm going to do for giving.
Yes.
Just to prove you wrong once more again, okay?
Oh.
So here's what we're going to do.
Oh.
Just like you saw on the football stuff this year, right?
Yes.
Win, $100,000 of Terry Bradshaw's money, right?
Are you going to give away $100,000, Bob?
Of your money.
Holy crap.
Win Sean Ray's money. This is what we got to work on. I'm going to get to Jake on this one.
It's all about money with you.
It's all about giving,
I'm
bro.
trying to give experience. I want to learn what these athletes are doing with their time.
Mr. Giver here, all of a sudden, he's a different thing.
No, here's the thing. When we were coming up, we wanted to be on the cover shot, right? We wanted to be on the cover of the magazine. But to get there, we had to bust our hump. We had to do our work and compete against the world's best. And once we got there, we knew there was a reward in some way, either being interviewed or being photographed or highlighted and celebrated. Today's economy doesn't really afford you that. You could win a show and your phone doesn't ring. It's crickets. No one's lining you up for a photo shoot. No one wants to get your story. But here at Monday Night Muscle, we can celebrate those athletes, Bob, by bringing them in here, having them on a Zoom call, which is nice, digital.
Sure.
And also we could maybe get the digital covers back and do a story on them in a feature. And instead of having it once a month, we have it once a week. We put our people together, we highlight and celebrate our champions across the board. And this is how we change the sport of bodybuilding. If the magazines are going to be disappearing and digital is the only place to get that information, we got to think on a higher plane. We got to get ahead of the curve and create these opportunities that were given to us.
The wheels are turning right now, folks.
That's why I bring you on.
Tuned in. Win $10,000 of Sean Ray's money.
Incredible.
Coming soon for Sean Ray and his bank account. I'm Bob Chick. We'll catch up with you guys real soon.
How did we get here? My money? I don't got any money, Bob.